So bankers are basically people who help people sell companies and help people buy companies. And when you sell a company for like anything north of probably 50 million, they likely have a banker. And I've been contacting bankers, and my pitch to them is this: hey, I'm thinking about starting a company in this space. You've sold a few companies in this space. Tell me everything about why this company was bought, as well as what the opportunities are that the buyer, what they were looking for. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, I'll let you sell my company. And I've been able to line up meetings doing this. And
By
it's
the way, genius. And I've been a part of 1 or 2 of those types of conversations. And I was like, oh, wow, these guys are like vaults filled with gold.
I met a famous person this weekend. I went and saw Jimmy, is it Yang or Wang? The comedian.
I think
Jimmy
O Yang or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's Jimmy O. I forget his last name, but he's, what was his character in Silicon Valley? Jing Yang?
Jin Yang, yeah.
And he's a comedian, and he was an awesome guy. And my friend is dating him, Bree. And
All right,
Bree,
funny in person or not?
yeah, he's awesome. He was awesome.
Like comedian funny? Like you just talking to him, were you like, wow, this person should be a comedian if they weren't?
No, he was just really insightful, and he had like really good, strong opinions, and he told stories well. I mean, I think you could actually do it if you were to sit down and write a bit. I actually think that you have the same traits. But no, he was just a really nice, thoughtful guy. But he was like legit famous to where everywhere we went, people would talk to him, and it was pretty cool to see. And I imagine quite annoying for him because the people who are fans of him, because he doesn't actually talk like that. You know, he's American, right?
Right.
And but
they're not fans of him, they're fans of Jin Yang.
Yeah, well, they are fans of him, particularly the Asian community. They love him because, well, he's like representing nicely. But basically, they come up to like a white guy came up to him and kind of said something a little inappropriate, and it was like rooted in like the Silicon Valley show.
Right.
And they think that he has an accent and things like that, and that's super annoying, particularly in Austin where there's tons of like white bros. So I imagine that could be annoying, but he was legit famous, and it was kind of cool to see.
When you're around people who are like, you know, famous in their world, how do you act? Do you go door A, treat them like a normal person, in fact, almost disregard their fame? B, nerd out about, you know, asking them a zillion questions about, you know, the show and what blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, basically to ask them all the questions that they probably heard before, but with enthusiasm. Or C, something else. What do you do?
Dude, so I do B, but I do it in a very direct way, kind of like the podcast where it could tell that I'm like really confident, but I'm asking questions up that everyone wants to know. So I'm like, so what's
it like kind of negging them?
Yeah. So it's like, so what's it like? Here's a tiny example. I've got a friend of a friend who had cancer and he lost his leg. And when I first saw him, I was like, what's going on, man? Are you crushing it at pull-ups because you're lighter now? Like, how many pounds did you lose off that leg? And he like really quickly opened up because he was like, oh, you just got that out. You got it. We got it out of the way.
You're not acting like it's not here, but you're also not making a huge deal out of it.
Yeah. And so that's like how I usually when I'm with famous people. So I'm like, so what's it like? You're pretty famous. Is that cool or is it bad? Like just very direct. And I typically find that it makes people lighten up and you are nagging them in a sense, but you're also like congratulating them and they really will just open up.
You're like, you're better looking in person. I watched the show.
Yeah. You're way taller than I thought. Yeah. You're not nearly as slight of build as I was expecting.
Yeah. You're actually funny.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's like, you know, I don't care what people say. I think you're great.
Dude, my brother-in-law has the best celebrity move. If he sees a celebrity, he greets them like a long lost friend. So he'll see like we saw Mike Tyson and he'll be like, Mike, what's up, man? How you been? And he'll go dap them up and he'll be like, good seeing you. And he'll just like keep going. And they're just like, do I know this guy? Like, where did I? He'd be like, George, yo, how's Houston? George. And then he'll like just keep going. And like he'll just make it seem like they're just reconnecting rather than meeting for the first time. And I thought, what a hack. What an amazing hack. Because these people meet tons of people, so they don't remember. And so they'll automatically go with your assumption that you like sort of know each other or you're equals in some way, peers in some way.
Have you ever been to a restaurant and the owner walks around just greeting people and asking how things are?
Of course, yeah.
I had a friend that told me he used to pick up women that way, where he was just like, I would approach this with the attitude, like I wouldn't act like I was the owner, but in my head, I would act like the owner.
How's everybody doing here?
Yeah. And I would and I had that energy, and I was able to meet so many people with that energy.
That restaurant owner energy, dude. That's so good.
It's a good one. And so I, like, at HustleCon, when we're hosting HustleCon, or when you and I are hosting one of our events, like you kind of know everyone knows who you are. And so you kind of know that you have the feeling where you can just walk up to talk to anyone and they'll know what's up.
Right.
You have that energy when you're trying to meet girls, and it's the best.
Right. Dude, that's so good. Like, I'm just gonna start wearing like a small dish towel in my waist and go to
Crocs.
restaurants and then just walk around, just have a drink and just be walking around, greeting each table, making sure everything's going smoothly for them.
Yeah. You're not lying. You're not telling them.
I never said it. Never said it. You assumed based on my big restaurant energy here.
All right, bro. I got a few interesting things to run by you. Did you have a lot left over from last time?
Yeah, I kind of did. Can I tell you about one?
Yeah.
I don't know, like business/idea, this niche that's like got my attention right now. So, I talk about this the other day? How I went to the Blippi show. Did I tell you about this?
No.
All right. So do you know who Blippi is? Have you ever heard of Blippi?
I don't know what that is. No.
All right. So like, remember like back in the day we had Barney or like, like Pee Wee Herman or whatever. He's like, it's a dude. So he kind of looks like Pee Wee Herman or whatever, but he's more like a Barney or, Sesame Street style show. So basically there's a guy who went on YouTube, created this brand called Blippi, and he's entertaining. So he'd be like, oh, and by the way, the funny thing that he does is there's no like set. He just goes into like, hey, we're at the aquarium, but they just go in like after 9 p.m. It's like closed down. And so it's just, they have it all to themselves. Like, hey, we're here in Las Vegas at this rock climbing studio. And so he just uses that to film his thing, but he gives it a shout out at the beginning of the video. The video gets like 40 million views. So it's like, it's worth it to let these guys film there. And he just like goes around and he'll basically just play with toys. He'll be like, I'm at an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese. And he'll go play with a bunch of toys. And there's like music and whatever overlaid.
And it's the same guy. I'm looking at him now. It's the same guy every single time.
It is, except for as he blew up and got famous, then they switched him out with just a stunt double for a bit. And so like that guy's like a substitute teacher sometimes. And then sometimes Blippi comes back. But like the main guy is the main guy. He wears this outfit. It's like this blue outfit with this orange glasses. He like always looks the same. So anyways, my daughter loved Blippi. We used to watch a ton of Blippi. And all of a sudden we see this ad that says Blippi, like the live show is coming to Oakland. And so we were like, oh shit. And so instantly my wife buys tickets for all of us in the family. We go to this thing last weekend and it's at the same place you did HustleCon. So it's at the Paramount Theater and it is packed. Like, HustleCon was like, sold out ish. This was like sold out. Like even the back shitty seat is like sold out. And it's full of parents and their kids. And then there's they basically just created like a little play, like a little mini musical, 1 hour, because kids don't have that long of an attention span. And it's just kind of like music and like, lights and colors. And he's, oh, dinosaurs. Oh, rocks. Oh,
how much did it cost?
So every ticket, I want to say was
that venue seats
maybe like $60 a seat, something like that.
So that venue seats between 2,500 and 3,000, I believe.
Yeah. So I think there was 2,000 there. And I believe the tickets were something like 50, 60, $70, something like that.
So we're in like 120,000.
And then he played 4 shows in a row that weekend. And then he went to the next city. So it was he had done 8 shows or he was doing something like that. So it was like some crazy like thing where I was like, oh, wow, this weekend they made whatever, $800,000. And yeah, the tickets basically range from like, $60 to $90. And the place is lit, by the way. So like, he comes on stage, kids go crazy. He's like, he'd be like, what does the bubble do? And everyone's like, pop. And he's like, when I say pop, can you say pop? And like, so it's like not like a quiet show, like, because kids are loud anyways. So some kids are just not paying attention. Like my daughter during intermission was like, I want to watch Blippi on YouTube. And so we like had to open up YouTube on our phone and give it to her during intermission because she couldn't like go 5 minutes without stimulation. And so and then they have like the merch and the concessions. They have like all that shit, right? So it's like pretty dope actually. And I was like, wow, this is kind of genius. They just took YouTube IP, and this guy who was there was not Blippi. The guy on stage was just some theater kid who like didn't make it, and so he's like, all right, plan B, I'll be Blippi. And so it was like they took the IP, but they made their own show out of it. And so I started looking into this, and there's a company that does this called Vstar Entertainment.
Awesome.
So Vstar, what they do is they go license these kids brands, and then they put on kids Broadway basically, and they tour around the country.
Awesome.
And so
and Blippi's just a guy with a guitar, right? Or were there more instruments?
No guitar. He just him. He just walks around.
So were there any instruments, or was it just like a soundtrack? No,
just soundtrack and like lights and like stage props. So
wow.
Like,
So he only had like his crew.
Dancers. Like, if they came out as sharks, like a bunch of like little backup dancers came out as sharks, and then they whatever. Like
that's awesome.
It's a mini theater show, right? And so Vstar Entertainment, they do another brand that you've probably heard of or you may have heard of called Paw Patrol. It's basically another kids cartoon. So guess how much. This is my like kind of triangulation. Guess how much they sold in Paw Patrol tickets last year? Just take a guess.
20 mil?
$40 million.
$40 million in event tickets?
In event tickets and that's just the tickets, not the merch.
And that was just last year in 22?
I don't know. It's like, this is like the just before COVID numbers. So like, I don't know, 2019, 2020, something like that.
Wow.
So they got bought by Cirque du Soleil. So the backstory is some guy decides, oh, you know what? Like he's watching Sesame Street. He's like, Sesame Street should do a live show. And he goes and he basically raises $500,000 from this guy. He mortgages his house, gets an extra $25,000 out of his home equity. So he's got $525,000. And he goes and he gets the license to Sesame Street. And he started with the Sesame Street show and then Muppets and like, he did.
But that must have been years ago.
This was in the like 1980s, something like that.
Yeah.
And then this other guy was doing it. They merged, and then that whole thing gets bought by Cirque du Soleil last year. Cirque du Soleil, by the way, like guess how much Cirque du Soleil revenue was? Have you ever been to a Cirque show?
No, I've not, but I do know that the guy who started it is a Canadian guy. He's a billionaire. I read Dan Blazarian's book, and they talk about that guy a lot. I think he's like, he started a circus, so he's like
Liberty or whatever.
Yeah, he's really eccentric and wild and everything. So it made him a billionaire. How much revenue does it make?
Ben, have you been to a Cirque du Soleil show? Cirque du Soleil does $1 billion a year in revenue, which is insane. 10%, 5 or 10% of all Las Vegas tourists go to a Cirque show when they're in town.
Is that what's that at? Cirque? Is that like the name?
Well, they have like 10 shows, right? It'll be like they have and then they have Zoomanity, and they have like whatever.
And the Beatles. I know all about it, and I'm into it. And it's publicly traded, or at least it was before it was acquired by private equity, right?
Yeah, private equity owns it now. And it's a pretty badass business. The idea was do a circus, but no animals. So it was like only human performers. And to do that, they did like crazy acrobats and like great costumes.
It's basically its own genre at this point, though.
Right. And so he built that thing into a real juggernaut. And so Cirque then bought Blue Man Group and Vstar Entertainment. And so they got Blue Man, which is like an ad. What they had said was like, we do 10 million in ticket sales a year for Cirque du Soleil. Blue Man adds another 2 million. And then Vstar adds another 2 million, but they're all like different ticket prices, but like they do 14 million in tickets sold per year. And so this like live entertainment thing really has caught my attention because I think as the world moves more and more digital, the demand for like these one-off experiences, like, hey, let's get out of the house and go do something. Totally. I think it's just going to keep going up. Music festivals, that's a winner. And then there's like, I think plays and musicals are going to be a winner. I think they're going to be bigger than they were before, even though the world moves digital. And in fact, because the world moves digital. What do you think about all this?
I 100% agree. And so earlier today, I sent you a Notion doc of some of my notes on, I'm interested in peer businesses, which is basically like you pay money and you're part of a club and you meet up with them. And I can't talk too much about what the names of the companies were, but they were doing like, one of them does 100 million a year in profit. And it's basically 2 or 3 meetups a year. And there's executives paying $50,000 a year to be part of them. And I think actually these are going to completely boom. I think conferences right now are interesting, but those are really hard. This actually seems way easier to pull off. All types of meetups, Airbnbs. I'm 100% on board that I think that in person is the move.
Yeah. I think that. So then I started thinking, like, what are the other opportunities? And so I think, you could just like go compete with these guys on like either the same brands or another brand. So like what they did was the Vstar guy took TV IP, turned it into a live show. What the Blippi guy is doing is taking YouTube IP and turning it into a live show. And I think you could just even do this for more. So like, I think you could even do like We've talked about religion, which is the greatest free IP in the world. So I think somebody could do this for religion, which is make an extremely kid-friendly, in fact, kid-focused, like Christianity show, basically. I think you could do this for dinosaurs or science as a generic genre, because like if kids love trucks and dinosaurs or whatever, and you could just basically create the show, Day with Dinosaurs or something like that. And once you get if you have a certain level of quality, moms will spread this and they will talk about it, and they will in their mommy groups, they will help you sell these tickets. And I just feel like there's it's not that hard. Like you build one show and then you sell that one show 1,000 times, right? Like the show goes on tour. Mamma Mia has made I don't know, some stupid amount of money just being the same show on tour with replacing the low cost actors over time.
I'm trying to find the numbers. So we did events, but we would do this thing called HustleCon, which was our big one where thousands of people would come. But then we do this thing called 2X, and 2X was basically from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And it was basically, we got 15 or 10 women, all who were in tech and business. Not that many of them were well known, but they would have 10 minutes to tell a story, and we would charge $25, but then we would get tens of thousands of dollars in sponsors. But we got to the point where we could pull this off kind of almost weekly in other cities. And when we started doing this, the hustle wasn't that popular, but we were making I think 30 grand a night when we were doing it. And we had one employee running it. Right. And she would use a team of contractors. And then we wouldn't supply anything. I think we had free wine, but I don't even think it was free. We wouldn't supply anything. But then when we have corporate sponsors, and we crushed it. And in my head, I'm I can always fall back on this to make a living because it was so much easier than people thought.
Right.
That's
pretty good for a tech bro business. You were running one of the best women's entrepreneurship events.
Yeah,
because in the country. You got labeled wrong, dude.
I did. Yeah, I'm like an onion man. There's layers. So, but basically, we used to do this thing called Pizza in 40s, where we would do a meetup, and I would interview someone, and they would drink a 40 ounce, and when the 40 ounce beer was done, the talk was done. But then women were this is there's all dudes here. And so we created a wine version, and that had way better. It was called cheese and wine. I don't even remember, but that had way better engagement. And so we're let's pursue this vein. There's clearly an opportunity here. And so we created 2X, which it's 2X chromosomes, which I thought was clever. I stole it from Reddit. But anyway, we would do, I think we did 10 or 12 in 1 year. And every single time it was 20 and 30 grand. And the cost was nothing. The cost was renting the venue, which cost $3,000, and we would make 20 grand.
You had readers in every city, right? So that's how you sold the tickets. Is that?
Yeah, but we weren't. Basically, the speakers sold the tickets. The reason why we had 15 speakers was I was I bet each 15 will get 25 people to come, plus our little bit of our engine. This is easy.
And you weren't making the money off the tickets. You're making it off the sponsors, really, anyways.
The tickets, the business model was the tickets paid for the event, and then the conference was the sponsors were all the profit. But there's two things going on. One, women. So whenever you have an underserved community, sponsors definitely are willing to pay more. And two, it was a B2B component. So it wasn't kids component, which I think would alter the economics. But my point of it is that I think that it was far easier than people thought. And it was way more rudimentary and raw than people thought. And it worked. We just used Splash That. I think if you Google 2X The Hustle, you'll see the Splash That is basically Eventbrite. It was nothing special. And it freaking worked.
That's dope. All right. What else we got?
All right. Let me, I just got kicked out of the document. All right. I got it. So one thing, tell me what you think about this. One thing that I've been doing as I'm now starting to get back into the game, or thinking about it. So I've been setting up calls with bankers. So bankers, which I didn't even know what those were. Bankers, when Sarah, my wife, went to Penn,
worked at a bank.
Yeah, and I would always make her friends were I'm a banker. I work at a bank. I'm oh, which branch? And so bankers are basically people who help people sell companies and help people buy companies. And when you sell a company for anything north of probably 50 million, they likely have a banker. And I've been contacting bankers, and my pitch to them is this: hey, I'm thinking about starting a company in this space. you've sold a few companies in this space. Tell me everything about why this company was bought, as well as what the opportunities are that the buyer, what they were looking for. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, I'll let you sell my company. And I've been able to line up meetings doing this. And
By the way, genius. And I've been a part of 1 or 2 of those types of conversations. And I was like, oh, wow, these guys are like vaults filled with gold. Well,
dude, so much.
Bankers need podcasts. Like, why are these guys not talking?
Well, they can't.
Have so much info. No, but they can talk, like, generally speaking. They can't talk about any specific deal, but like they know a lot, dude. And they know everything. It's like your accountant. It's like accountants and bankers.
They know everything.
Yeah.
They know everything. And they've been telling me so much information. So they'll say, here's why this company was doing well. Here's why it was succeeding. Here's why they bought it. And I'm like, all right, great. What other companies was that buyer trying to buy and why? And they're like, well, they always struggled with blank. And I'm like, boom, thank you. Right. And then I'll say like, you sold 3 businesses in the same space. Which one was more fun to run? And so like, for example, I'll give you a concrete example. The business that I'm interested in now, we've talked about a bunch. It's like Vistage, which is basically a peer group. So companies that it's like a group of 10 or 40 people who all have a similar job title, and they meet together and they discuss their problems. And it's like a safe space to discuss shit you can't talk about on the internet. And some of them do huge. One of them, I can't say which, does over 100 million in profit a year. And they're just like meetups in real life. And I'll just be like, well, what job titles was Gartner or whoever buys these companies? What job titles are they trying to get to? And they're really struggling to reach. And they'll just tell me. I'm like, oh, great. I can create a community around that. And I think I could build it to sell it, which what I want to know from your perspective, is that even a good plan, building to sell? So part of me is like, yes, it's clear path to make money. Another part is like, it's kind of lame though.
Yeah. Well, I think where you're at now, let's take three options. Build to sell, which is basically optimizing for like, oh, is there a sort of like a flip? Is there a buyer on the other side of a business like this? Another one is build to win, which is basically like, for example, when I talk to these bankers, what I'm trying to figure out is which of these businesses is like not a special snowflake where it's like, oh, that's actually like a rinse and repeatable model. Like that founder didn't like catch lightning in a bottle at the perfect time and it's their perfect background and they got really lucky about this one thing. It's like, oh, those I don't want to emulate. I want to emulate the one where it's like, I think somebody could start that same business today and do equally well or do just as well in this one adjacent space. And like, you don't need to be a genius with that. And so that's the second part of it, which is like build to win. It's like optimizing for something that's going to work. And then there's the last one, which is sort of like, build for fun or build for mission, which is like go for something that like something you would never want to sell that you're willing to do, even if it's low likelihood of success. I think we all know the answer is to do that bucket, right? Like, I think the question is like, how much security do you need before you go do the thing you should do?
Well, or it could be a combination of all three. Like it could be like you enjoy winning or you enjoy this space and you want to make it successful. But there's a great clip from you and David Friedberg. There's a great clip that I shared that you and him had where he basically said that founders always sell themselves short and they go for these small ideas because they think it's more reasonable. But when doing that, they kind of screwed themselves because it's actually easier sometimes to do much grander, bigger ideas because that attracts the crazy types of people who you want to work with.
It's the least competitive because nobody else, not every Joe is going to try to, do it like, going and trying to, start a railroad business or whatever versus an FBA business. It's like, well, they're both going to take all your time. So that's equal. Money, well, you're going to have to go raise money from investors. One will let you just raise, you're still going to get the money you need from investors. Just one, you'll maybe raise more at a higher valuation, and the other one you'll raise less at a lower valuation, right? Like,
but did you agree? Do you agree with him?
I do agree with him. And I've thought this for a very long time. I remember back in the day, did you ever hear about this thing called the Unreasonable Institute? I don't even think this is around anymore.
But that's a great name.
It's sort of like the same guys who did Summit. It's not actually the same guys, but it's the same. It was like the same idea. It was like the Unreasonable Institute was basically this, like, it was based on this one word, unreasonable, and the way that the hustle is built on this one word, hustle. and trends is built on one word, trends. And so the unreasonable, it was exactly that. It was like, it's going to take unreasonable people to do unreasonable things for the world to move forward. And it was like very inspiring. And they met with a bunch of people, a bunch of people who did that, the sort of Elon Musk types who went and did unreasonable things. And then you start to look at it and you're like, all things equal, I guess like your inputs are sort of the same. It's just your time and energy. And then like the outputs can be very, very different because
the inputs aren't the same. Because it is possible to build something pretty cool and not work that hard, but it's kind of impossible to build something huge and not work very hard.
All right, who do we know? And let's do real examples. I'm not saying it's not true, but who do we know that's building successful, awesome businesses without working too hard?
Well, how about Sully? I actually don't know. What's his schedule? Does he grind constantly?
He works hard. Yes, he works hard.
So then no one. We don't know anyone. But you and me, like maybe
I'll give you one nuance on it. He got there faster than the normal person. So it looked like it came easier, but that's just because he was better. It wasn't because he worked like he wasn't putting in a 10th of the hours. He was putting in the same number of hours and getting there 10 times faster, which is like,
I just think that like there's a world where you have business A and it doesn't grow nearly as fast and you're working 40 hours a week. And then you have business B that's growing significantly faster and you have to work 100 hours a week. Like that is a reality.
That's yes, that's true.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like very little. I'm talking about normal versus not normal.
There's also things like this podcast or like people who have like newsletters or blogs or something like that, where it's like, or they teach a course. And it's like, like let's take your buddy Neville, right? So Neville, I don't think
you and me.
Well, but I'm doing multiple things, right? So it's like on each one, I'm not putting in as much time, but like overall, I'm working harder. And if I didn't do those other things, that one thing would just expand in time. I would just do more. I would spend
how often are you working now a day? Normal work hours?
Not normal hours, but I work like the equivalent of 8 hours a day.
Got it. Okay.
Just not all continuously.
All right, but back to what was the original point?
So my point was like, is this really true that you can kind of like chill and win? And like,
no, I didn't mean to say chill. But I mean chill less, or sorry, chill more, work less.
Yeah. Okay,
wait, so then, bro, if you agree with Friedberg, which I think I do, why are you not going after like one big grand thing? Like I started a newsletter. That's not exactly like, that's not like world changing entirely. It's neat, but right. I would put it on a 6 out of 10 in terms of like maybe a 5 in terms of like big ideas.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. The reason why is because to me, it's not a bigness contest. It's do I have a clear picture of what I want to like my life to be? And then do I have a crystal clear picture? And then can I make that happen? And it's like knowing what I want and then getting what I want. And so what I wanted was not to work the 100 hours, right? Even though I agree, like that's cool. It's fun. And if I did do it, I do think there's all these extra benefits. You would get amazing talent to come join you. You'd make a bunch of money. You'd have a bunch of fun. Like there's great benefits if I did the big one, the big one. But I decided that like what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I wanted was more like the 40-hour a week, but hours spent on doing these types of things. Like I love teaching. Teaching's not the most like world changing, Unreasonable Institute style, like let's go land a rocket on Mars type of idea, but I have the most fun doing it. So I'm just optimizing for like a different thing rather than bigness. I'm optimizing for like, my own enjoyment. And so that's why I'm not going after that. So I need things that are sufficiently interesting so that I'm interested and big enough so I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, but like it's not maximally big.
Right. I feel you. Well, to wrap up the bank thing, I think it's been kind of interesting. I'm going to continue doing it. Maybe I didn't ask these people who I spoke with today if I could talk about what we discussed, so I'm not going to bring it up, but very useful. I sent you the notes. They were cool.
They're great. And also this technique, whether it's a specific technique or a similar technique, it's like there are people who just know a lot of things. People who invest other people's money, accountants, bankers, people like VCs are like this. They see hundreds and hundreds of businesses a year, and so it's like those people. If you want to like speed dial your learning, you can go to them and you can get basically free learning off of them. All right, that's it. That's the episode.